To begin my speech, I will share a quote from JFK. It goes like this: "The war against hunger is truly mankind's war of liberation." Hi, my name is Shimwell Bean, and today I will be discussing with you the topic of the hunger crisis in Yemen. I've done extensive research on the subject, and it has given me a detailed understanding of the issue. My hopes in this speech are to persuade you to consider a couple of different ways and a couple of different solutions on how we could potentially help Yemen in their crisis. There are three things I want to touch on. One is the civil war within Yemen and how it affects their access to food. Two is Yemen's food import dependency and how that affects their access to food. And three is the lack of clean water and adequate health services within Yemen. So to begin with the first subject, which is the civil war in Yemen and how it affects their access to food, I have a quote from World Food Program USA, which gives a brief description of how the conflict has affected the people. It goes like this: "Conflict destroys lives, uproots communities, and wrecks food systems, making it the primary cause for hunger." This is very true because there has been a conflict within Yemen going on for a long time now. It has severely affected the people. It has damaged their infrastructure, which in turn has affected their transportation routes for food services. It has caused widespread displacement among the people, and it has damaged their economy severely. But there's a solution, a couple of solutions that I think might help. One is we could try peace negotiations, which in turn will hopefully make a safer area for humanitarian workers to do their job. Now that we have taken care of the first subject, I will now move on to the second subject, which is Yemen's food port dependency. I have a quote from World Health Organization that gives a brief description on how many people it's affected. It goes like this: "An estimated 24 million people in Yemen are in need of humanitarian assistance, including food." This is very true because Yemen lacks food services and sources. So there's a couple different solutions I think might help. One is to provide emergency food nutrition support for the children and the people that are malnourished, which they are malnourished severely, and hopefully that would help the cause. They are highly reliant on imported goods to receive their food. The population lacks food supplies, and as I stated before, they are heavily reliant on imports of food. I have a quote from Action Against Hunger, which gives a little bit of description of how life is when it comes to mothers and children anyway. It goes, "Parents, often mothers, go without food so their children can eat. It's a sad reality, but it is the reality." Now, another solution that I think might help increase the food production in Yemen is to boost agricultural production and supporting farmers. Okay. Now with the second subject taken care of, we will now move on to the third subject, which is how the lack of clean water and adequate health services affect Yemen. I have a quote once again from Action Against Hunger. It goes, "The high rates of hunger in Yemen are driven by the lack of clean water." A very true statement. I believe that if we could improve access to clean water and sanitation, it would greatly help the people of Yemen. The lack of clean water for them to consume has increased disease among the people. malnutrition is very common among the people in Yemen, and they lack proper healthcare services for the malnutrition, which could be treated if they had the services. In summary, we have talked about the civil war in Yemen and how it affects their access to food. We have talked about Yemen's food import dependency and how that affects their access to food. And 3, we talked about the lack of clean water and adequate health services in Yemen. I will now conclude with a quote by Adlai E. Stevenson. It goes, "A hungry man is not a free man." Thank you for listening.